You know that your team sucks and mine is great. It's time for AFFL hate. Gonna make them pissed, gonna make them mad. I'm gonna do them dirty. Well, I lost. And I'm sure there are some of you out there who are gleeful at this turn of events. That's because you are small-minded and simple and petty. I wouldn't react the same way if you had lost. Yes, I wanted Scott to lose in the playoffs. Yes, I wanted Runny to start losing in the regular season. Yes, I wanted Gary to lose in the playoffs. But when these things happened, I wasn't gleeful about them because I knew they would happen. I knew these weren't good teams. I knew they were going to fall short. When it finally happened, it was more like putting a check next to my task list, my chores for the weekend. Not a big deal. Just finally came to pass. That's me. I'm a big guy. I'm a big thinker. I know how things are going to turn out. And when they do, I say to myself, see, that's how it went. The rest of you, small-minded, petty type folks, probably gleeful today. And that's fine. Was prepared for this loss. I had 3 whole days to get ready for it. I predicted on Friday that I would lose this game. Just didn't have the matchups, and Hagak had all the matchups. By the way, I predicted Hagak would score 112 points. Go back and listen to Fridays if you don't believe me. I gave myself 75 points. That was a little too pessimistic. I got it all the way up to 85. Still wasn't enough. Now, it's probably a bit ironic, maybe a bit pat, that I'm eliminated from the playoffs again with the second highest score of the week. It's probably also a little ironic that for as desperately as I wanted to win the division and get the bye and have that double victory in Week 13, if Hagak beat me in Week 13, I would have fallen to the 6th seed. He would have been the 2 seed, having lost to Animal House earlier in the year. As the 6th seed, I would have played Gary last week, beaten him rather handily. Then as the 6th seed this week, I would have moved on to face the number 1 seed, Animal House, who I would have beaten by 5 points this week and ended up in the Super Bowl. As it is, I got the bye that I really wanted, thought I wanted, had I known it was going to turn out this way. And the other thing that I knew that I wanted besides the bye was I really wanted Gary to win last week so I could face him, not have to face Hagak, who is a high-scoring team, who needs to be feared and respected in the playoffs. Of course, I would have beaten Gary this week and gone to the finals had he won. But none of that is how it turned out, and there was just no stopping Hagak this week. Even though Ben had a kind of an off game for him, only 12 points, they were giving the ball to Ben a lot. And Foster was held down. Only 11.7 for him. He didn't get in the end zone at all. Odell Beckham was the problem here. 3 touchdowns, 143 yards. He had a 4th touchdown that was called back by a holding penalty, 31 points. Golden Tate got in the end zone. He had a touchdown, 10 points. Demaryius Thomas, of course, he got in the end zone, 18.3 points. And DeMarco Murray got in the end zone twice, 20.4 points for DeMarco. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns out of 4 position players for Hagak. On the other hand, I had 1 touchdown from Eddie Lacy. Matt Ryan did play a good game, and it was just exciting for me as I had expected. You know, after Friday's preview when I had talked about, a whole bunch of things, of course, but when I had talked about the excitement I was feeling at having a good, high-scoring quarterback going for me this week, I got a 5-point email from Gary, and it was a fairly classic email from Gary in that it was long, and it was on the edges of some good points, but the good points never really formed together. He talked about how I'm not as smart as I think because I have this blind spot for Kaepernick. Even though I admit that I have the blind spot for Kaepernick, I'm so smart, I see my flaws. And you guys, who have tons of flaws, have no idea what it is to be aware of your flaws, burdened by your flaws, driven to the brink of despair by your flaws. That's the burden of being smart, folks. You may think it looks great. You know, it probably is great from the outside looking in. Let me tell you, once you get inside, once you're in it, you realize, what some of the problems were. He also then said some point about not benching my stars, how I said you can't do that, and that's why I was going to play AJ, even though I really wanted to play Mark Ingram. And somehow he linked that to sitting Kaepernick, even though I said Kaepernick's not a star, but this is the problem. We talked about this before. But then, most important of all, he said he didn't really believe that I believed that I was going to lose, that I was just covering my ass, because if I did lose, I could say, see, I thought I was going to lose. But no, I really did think I was going to lose, hence predicting correctly 112 points for Hagak. As for AJ Green, who I put into the starting lineup, even though he's never done that well against the Browns, even though I really wanted to play Ingram against the Bears, AJ had 36 receiving yards in the first quarter against Joe Hayden. Then I see a fantasy alert, Joe Hayden, shoulder injury, out for the game, and I'm like, wow, this is great. AJ's off to a good start already. Now Hayden's out. He's going to light it up. Nope. Jeremy Hill lit it up, and then Rob Winkler, something, some scruffy-looking Santa Rosa, California tight end for the Bengals, kept catching all the passes. AJ had one more catch, finishes with 4.9 points. DeAndre Hopkins, he got off to a decent start. Then Fitzpatrick broke his leg. In comes Tom Savage. I watched a couple of highlights on Red Zone. On the first one, Hopkins pulled up, about a 15-yard hitch. Savage threw it deep. On the next one, Hopkins went deep. Savage threw to the hitch. On the third one, had Hopkins down the sideline, 40 yards deep, ball hung up, safety came over and broke it up. That didn't help. It helped to have Savage in there because that obviously did hold down Foster because the Colts could just stack the line, but there was no way he was getting the ball to Hopkins, so that didn't help me much. And then Calvin Johnson, 5.3 points. The one thing I've noticed about Calvin and Stafford is you can tell in the first quarter if it's going to be one of those days. If Calvin gets a couple of catches quickly on the early drive, he's going to have one of those 20, 25, 28-point games. If he doesn't get into it right away, if Stafford's not getting him the ball right away, he's not going to do it. And watching some highlights of that game on Red Zone, you could see times where Stafford's not even looking to Calvin's side of the field. Cobb, respectable game. Parkey, respectable game. Bills defense, amazing job upsetting the Packers. And I got really excited when they ran back that punt for the defensive touchdown. I thought maybe this is going to be my day. I had the lead for a while, but Odell Beckham was not to be stopped. And so congrats to McCamey. There's nothing to be said. He went out. He won this game. I tried. I did okay. I could have beaten either of the other two teams, but it was not to be. And that's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. But here's the silver lining for me. I'm going to be in the playoffs again next year. I'm good at this. I know what I'm doing. Next year, it's going to be 4 out of 5 seasons in the AFFL for me in which I make the playoffs. Whereas you are probably not going to make the playoffs because you don't know what you're doing. Some of you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. There's probably about 2 or 3 owners that I really have to keep an eye on in this league and really worry about. But didn't get it done this year. Didn't get a playoff win this year. That's true. Nothing I can do if you bring that point up. Nothing I can say, except for the fact that I'll make the playoffs again next year for my 3rd year in a row, 4 out of 5, and that's not so bad. It's definitely better than you're doing. Animal House, 81.1. Little Baby Jesus, 55.1. Animal House really getting away with one this week. There were a couple ways the seedings could have gone, or the wild card games could have gone, where Animal House could have, and maybe should have lost this week, playing Ryan Matthews, who was scratched early on and was not looking good even by Friday. On the bench, Harry Douglas, 13.1 points. Marcus Wheaton, 6.6 points. Even Ben Tate had 0.8 points, which is more than the 0 that Ryan Matthews has scored. Now, I know Myers doesn't make a lot of transactions during the season. Not a lot of moves, but I know he's not an absentee landlord. Really surprised he had Matthews playing in this one. Wasn't a great matchup, even if he was at full speed, but it matters not, because little baby Jesus was done in, well, pretty much about the entire roster. You want to point the finger at Rodgers and his D- of a day against Buffalo. Only 4.8 points. far below his weekly average, but he wasn't getting any help. Johnny Stewart, 6.9. Mike Evans, 7.3, and that was with a touchdown. Steve Smith, 3.7. Sammy Watkins, 2.8. Gronk, he did his part with 15 points. Julian Edelman, he had 15 points on the bench, but that wasn't going to matter. Little baby Jesus. Not enough firepower this week. It's too bad that it had to end this way. But again, he's looking pretty good for next year, and he's turned this team around. Congrats to him. Brady, good game, 17 points. Le'Veon Bell, some guys are saying the number one back in the NFL. Going to be great to have him back next year on the Animal House, 23.9. Jamal Charles somehow held down going against Oakland, 5.3. Roddy White, 11.8. Macklin, 9.8. None of these really good games. Again, Animal House got away with one, got lucky, and now we have something interesting going into the championship game. Not to give away all of Friday's episode, but you have Animal House, who's had an amazing season this year, the number one seed, tons of points, went toe-to-toe with Hagak earlier and knocked him off. Two outstanding running backs and a great quarterback. All these factors which led me to say earlier in the season, Animal House is somehow going to lose in the playoffs. Teams this good don't win at all, especially in the number one seeds. But on the other hand, Hagak, the most points this season. They've really been lighting it up with the guys they had. It also led me to say there's no way they're going to win this season because of how fantasy football is. Guess what? One of those teams is going to win it all this season. This might be the weird fantasy football season that goes exactly how it was supposed to. Oh, and of course, let's not forget the bronze medal game. Little baby Jesus versus ISIS. I think there's a difference of $15 or $20 in winnings there, so we'll talk about that one a little bit too.